What's up, everybody? How you all doing today? Hopefully, you can all hear me okay. And we're back with another course release. And I have Andrew here with me. So you all know Andrew, aka Digital Andrew. What's up? How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Excellent. Really exciting day having the course coming out. I love course launch days.
Yeah, it's both exciting, but also whenever one of my courses go live, I'm also really like, I don't sleep the night that it goes live because I'm always like, I always have like, usually when I go to sleep, I set my phone to like sleep mode or whatever. So
Mhm.
like, even if you call me, I won't get it. But I have my Discord pings on just in case there's some disaster, and I never sleep very well. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's always an exciting time. So today we're going to talk all things assembly. Something that I personally don't know a lot about, but I'm actually slowly working my way through the course. So that's something at least. So if you have questions about assembly, low-level programming, hardware hacking, IoT stuff, Andrew Bellini is your man. So give us all of your deepest, darkest, low-level questions in the chat. But to start with, so Andrew, just in case we have a few new people in the chat, do you want to give a brief intro to who is Andrew Bellini, and then maybe kind of like give us an overview of the course?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, for those of you that don't know me, I am Andrew Bellini. I am a content creator here at TCM Security, where I do a whole bunch of stuff, actually, to be honest, kind of bounce around. But my background is in electrical engineering and embedded systems. And I have always really liked low level stuff and the intersection of hardware and software together. So, I have created our IoT hacking course and our IoT hacking certification. Also, have done our help desk course, so there's some of the bouncing
Yeah.
around comes out, and most recently the assembly course, which is something that I've been wanting to do actually even before I was working at TCM, just because it's something that I really enjoy. So it's really glad to get the opportunity to put it out and introduce that to everyone. And this is a true 101 course in that it assumes you have no assembly knowledge, zero assembly knowledge, and walks through the basics starting at what I think is a fairly entry level, comfortable pace, and then working all the way up to like writing actual assembly programs for x86 64 modern computers, not running an emulator. You can assemble them, link them, and run them right on your computer, and then even into learning about memory safety, the stack canaries, ASLR, and exploiting some of those as well. So it's designed to be like a primer almost if you want to get into reverse engineering, exploit
Yeah.
development, binary exploitation, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, nice. That sounds good. Um, so for the course, are there any prerequisites before you jump into the course? Because it is like a 101, but
Yes.
obviously a lot of people might be here. Maybe they've taken your help desk course, or maybe
Mhm.
they're new into cybersecurity, or maybe some people have computer science background. What do you recommend before getting started, if anything?
So I would recommend that you should have at least some experience programming in a higher level language. And that can be anything, like even if it's Python or like a scripting language, just so you know the fundamentals, like core fundamentals of programming. So, like, you understand what loops are, what are conditional statements, what are functions, what are variables, that kind of stuff, because I don't go over any of that. It kind of assumes that you have that foundation down already. But outside of that, there's nothing. So if you do want a fresher or, to get up to speed on this, we have
Yeah.
the Programming Fundamentals 100 course, which is in our free tier. So it's free to take.
Yeah, nice.
Just the content in that course would be enough. Oh, and you should also have a handle on Linux as well, because
Okay,
we use
that
Linux
makes
and
sense.
I don't really go over. I mean, there's not a lot. Like, we just do some commands, the usual stuff.
Yeah. I feel like that's really great because for me, I've looked into learning assembly a few times, and the barrier to entry has always been pretty high, and especially since I'm not a complete beginner. I have a fair bit of programming experience, and I was a dev for a little while, and I worked in security for 10 years, and I did a master's in computing. Even then, it's been like, I don't know, 3 hours in, I'm like, "What is this?" And then I just quit. So
Yes.
for me, I feel like it's really a great place to start. So I hope that other people find it as accessible as I did. I haven't quite finished the course yet. I'm about a third the way through, but it's going really really well. So that's pretty nice. Um, I can see a couple of questions. So I have a bunch of questions as well, but let's take some questions from the audience. Just quickly from, I think somebody posted, was it on LinkedIn or YouTube? Yeah, the recording is going to be on YouTube. So if you go to the Cyber Mentor YouTube channel, click on the live tab, you'll be able to see this recording. So if you're going into meetings or something or whatever, if you miss some key detail that Andrew's gonna share with you, then you can come back and find it. So you're all good. Um, all right, pinned questions. Let's go. Interesting one about going into exploit development. So if you're going to start as an exploit developer and you got some Python, C Sharp, C++, and C, which assembly language is best for me to start with? So I suppose assembly in general is,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think what they're asking though is like there's multiple architectures, right? And the language differs.
Yes, yeah,
So most exploit development is going to be for Windows computers because that's just what people in the corporate world use. And if you're developing exploits, then it's most likely going to be for that. So in that case, then you should learn x86, either 32-bit or 64-bit. They're both like pretty similar to each other. A lot of exploit development is still done in 32-bit because it's,
yeah.
64-bit systems are backwards compatible. And there's just some things that are a bit easier for shell coding and things like that. So if you're thinking exploit development is going to be on computers, then that. If you're thinking IoT devices, though, then ARM is the way to go. Like those are the two major ones these days is x86 and ARM. And honestly, like ARM in the future is probably going to replace x86. It seems like that's kind of what's going on right now in the world of PCs. But as it stands, like right now, this day, x86 64 is the most dominant as far as like if you want to learn it for that. It's kind of like if you need to learn Active Directory because everyone in the corporate world is using Windows computers with Active Directory. So yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, nice. We've got another question from Andrew Prince. So he also works at TCM as well, also known as Malware Cube. So if you all don't know, he's the author of the SOC 101 course, which is a great course, and the exam's been really, really like touted a lot online. A lot of people love the certification that's been put out as well.
yes.
So I know assembly knowledge can be really useful in malware analysis / reverse engineering. Oh yeah, and MalwareCube has a YouTube channel, so go and check it out as well. So you can just click on his name or just search. There's some good videos on there. What other roles might benefit from having a foundational knowledge of assembly? So this is a really good question. This is actually one that I was thinking of earlier as well. So because I think within cybersecurity, not everybody needs to know assembly, but there are a lot of roles that I think could benefit from it. So what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, the malware analysis, first off, like great shout out. Probably honestly, as far as like what roles are out there and the most common one that would use assembly, that's probably it. And we actually, so for this course, we usually draw our testers from like people that have done the PNPT cert. But this one, I got people that did the IoT cert and the practical malware research professional. And there were a few people that did the PMRP that said, I wish I had have taken this course before I did the PMRP. So that one's definitely probably the top one. The other ones, we already had a question about it, but exploit development, you'll definitely need to know at least some assembly. You're probably going to need to know how to write custom shell code. probably need to be good at reverse engineering. Another one that falls like similar into that vein is security research. You will need to, if you want to go hunt for 0 days in vulnerabilities. Understanding assembly is going to be very good to know. Anything like IoT, that kind of low level embedded security, assembly is going to come in really handy, both for developing exploits against what you're researching and also reverse engineering. So those are some of the big ones that come to mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's like so many roles and so many like skills. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth looking into if any of that is kind of like on your horizon, or something that, even if it just interests you, because picking up new skills is always useful. That makes sense. All right, so I'm just gonna, like, we've got a ton of questions coming in, so I'm just gonna keep going with these, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
My questions can wait till later, so we're all good. One from Arubius. Shout out to Arubius. How you doing? Does the course focus on specific kind of assembly, so ARM, ARM, Intel, etc.?
Yes. So this course specifically focuses on x86 assembly. So we start with x86-16. So that is the first like x86 instruction set and we use an emulator for the Intel 8086, which, if you're not familiar with that processor, it is a very important processor in modern computing, because that is the first one that the x86 instruction set that's still used was created for. Now, that processor is actually from like 1975, so it's very old. So I know some people are probably like wondering, well, why would we use a 50-year-old processor? But a lot of the basics of the instruction set and assembly, like you'll see when you go through the course, from going from x86-16 up to 64, like a lot of the fundamentals are still the same, surprisingly. Like hardware has gotten a lot better, and there's gotten a lot more instructions, advanced instructions, but the core stuff is still the same. So we start with that. And the reason we do is because it's just so much easier in an emulator. You don't get overwhelmed with like a whole bunch of extra stuff that you need to figure out. And you can just see everything really easy in emulator, all the flags, registers, your memory. But then we move on to x86-64. And specifically, we use Intel syntax, and I'm using the GNU assembler. So it's usually referred to as GAS. It's the one that's like default in Linux. And because that's the one that GCC uses as well. So it makes it like a little bit closer to if you're reverse engineering C programs or things like that.
Yeah, nice. That makes sense. I have a question. You're not a Mac user, are you?
Me?
Or are you?
Not right now. I have.
So I think maybe somebody in the chat can answer this. So I've been using MOBA Xterm recently. What's a good alternative on Mac? I have no idea, because I don't use the Mac, because I don't understand the especially on like the developer side. A lot of devs using Macs these days.
Yeah.
And apart from like the terminal, which is nice to not have to learn a bunch of new commands, like Unix commands, I don't see why they use it. That's just my opinion. But yeah, if you know a good alternative to MOBA Xterm, somebody in the chat,
interesting. Yeah.
Drop in some recommendations, because I've got no idea. So nice. Okay. So Hamza, how are you doing? I've got a question coming in. How can assembly language help us being a better pen tester? So yeah, specifically, I'm going to assume he's referring to network pen testing, and not the amazing world of AppSec or bug bounty, which is awesome. But yeah, let's assume network pen testing. What are your thoughts on this? The only thing I can think of really, writing shellcode can definitely be useful if you're trying to pull off an exploit and you're trying to evade like EDR, etc. But do you have any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, so at like base level network pen testing, then it's honestly probably not going to be super beneficial that you'll need to like bust that out in like an Active Directory pen test or a standard network one. Once you bump up into like red teaming, then I think it's definitely a little bit more applicable when you're going to be writing your own exploits and possibly tooling and trying to exploit things and remain undetected, then you bump up into that. Like the OS E3 has the OSED in it for that reason. So yeah, the one thing I can say just in general for technical roles is, for me at least, learning assembly helped me just understand a lot of higher level programming concepts a lot better. So like it made me a better developer and made things about how the computer work click for me. Not to say that you definitely need that, but like I would say just like overall, if I didn't even write or look at assembly again, it still really helped me understand like memory management and pointers and things like that. So that can help for all roles.
Yeah, makes sense. I agree. Got a question here from Henry. So I have an interest in MIPS and SH4 Arch. Would you say the course would translate well for these?
Some things would, because we do it at a very general level for some things, and like a lot of the base instructions are still going to be carryover from what they're doing at like a high level, but I don't cover MIPS at all. If you are interested in MIPS, though, the IoT hacking course focuses on a router that is MIPS architecture and reverse engineering that. Although we don't really specifically go a lot into the assembly level, but yeah, we talk about it a bit, and we reverse engineer MIPS architecture in that course. Nowadays, though, MIPS is getting pretty rare, so it's less. Yeah, it's mostly on embedded devices, but even then, it's still usually old ones. It is an interesting architecture, though.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, so I personally kind of like dabble in a lot of different things. Mostly, a lot of it is out of curiosity, but also in terms of trying to improve my skills in different things, or at least in different areas. Do you think learning assembly helps in terms of general programming when you're working on higher level languages?
Yes, 100%. Especially like the lower you get in like languages, so like C, C++, Rust, those, it really helped me understand like how memory management works, dynamic memory allocation, because you have to handle all of that yourself in assembly. And it really made like, those concepts click for me, like double pointers, arrays of pointers, what's going on at a low level. Some of that stuff I honestly didn't fully understand from like, I took computer science courses in university until I started actually writing assembly. And then like when you start seeing how stuff happens at the low level, I think it makes you more aware of like using proper algorithms and like data structures for things and being more efficient with your programming. So I could even see it at like a really high level, like Python or something, still helping you that way, because you're understanding how impactful that can be when you're seeing like the extra processor cycles and like, the redundancy and things like that.
Yeah, I think because of modern day development is often like really abstracted. We have like high level languages and libraries and everything else. I feel like that can lead to a lot of bad habits, and we probably don't explore in detail some things as much as we should, especially as you're saying, like data structures, and there is a right and a wrong way to do things. And like for me, it's not such a big deal if I'm just building a CTF and people are going to break it anyway. Do I need to write like the best code in the world? No, but a lot of people do need to write code that's really solid for production. So yeah, that's really, really nice, for sure. I did see another question. I've just lost it in the chat, so give me a second to re-find it. Where's it gone? From Ginger Soul. I like the username. Will it lead into a more advanced IoT or malware/exploit development courses and or sets by TCM? What have we got on the horizon for advanced courses? Maybe we can't leak too much, but
I hope
you
so.
have some ideas.
That's what I'll say. So if you want those courses, then this is awesome to see you asking, and like definitely let us know on our socials and whatnot, because some of that kind of determines our, our bandwidth and what gets
Yeah.
developed next. But yes, I would really like to do both of those.
Yeah.
Potentially, like this course was designed, I said this before, but to kind of be a primer for learning those subjects. Like the end of the course, we finish up by talking about memory safety, and we look at like from an inside view a Stack Overflow and how to exploit that, write your own shell code, and how to remediate it. But none of it is like from the outside of what you would do as an exploit dev. Like we have all the source code, we have non-stripped and debuggable versions of the binaries. Like it makes it very easy to pull off the exploit, but it also, the intention of it is just so you see the inner workings. It's almost like pick those locks where you can pick them, but they're clear. It's kind of like that. But this is a primer to then, I would like to, yes.
Yeah.
I would love to do a course on reverse engineering and then one on binary exploitation. That would be super cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the more people who are going down this path gives us more of a case to make the courses, if that makes sense. So if you want to see the advanced course, then get clearing the assembly 101.
Yeah.
And then you'll definitely see some follow-up, which is good. Another one in from Rubius. So what level would you say the course leaves you at when you're finished? So comfortable enough with the basics, couldn't write Roller Coaster Tycoon. This could be my next web app, is like Roller Coaster Tycoon in JavaScript, full client side, no server. Be a fun little challenge.
For the people that don't get that inside joke, Roller Coaster Tycoon was programmed by one person, all in assembly. Even though like there was probably other languages, I don't know if they're just like a Giga programmer 10x and they're like, I'm just going to do an assembly, or maybe I think there was actually, maybe they felt like there were some limitations of like compilers and stuff at that time. Pretty impressive though. They did everything in just straight up assembly. But I wonder if
ChatGPT or Claude could do it though.
I doubt it.
That'd be a fun question. One prompt: write me Roller Coaster Tycoon in assembly.
I was using it a bit just to like check out what it could do with assembly, and it's not bad for learning, but it definitely makes some mistakes. It makes more mistakes in assembly than I've seen it in higher level languages, which probably makes sense just because there's like less of that on the internet for it to like scrape, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the less data it has, the less quality data is.
Billions of Python scripts for it to look at, but who's putting out like assembly?
Billions of bad habits to train your model with.
Yeah. But okay, to answer the question here from Rubius, I would say it's like, as far as writing your own programs, like somewhere to like an entry to mid level. So like if you took like an entry to mid level Python course, like you would be able to write your own scripts and stuff that takes user input, manipulates it, does some responses at that kind of level. That's where you would be at. Although like that wasn't necessarily specifically my intention of the course, because there's really not a lot of uses for writing stuff in assembly right now. Like there's just, compilers are so good, there's very limited of that. So instead, more my intention was that the best way to learn reverse engineering and stuff is forward engineering. So you should write it, and that way it helps you when then you read it, you understand. So I think the more important thing is that you would be able to read assembly pretty well after this. And even larger programs, you could break them down into chunks and read that at a pretty decent level.
I think I remember something similar from Live Overflow. He's saying on a video many years ago was write something, compile it, and then compare like the assembly to what you've written, and you'll start seeing patterns and things like this. And he says just be consistent. It's like learning to read, right? You just gotta or if you ever tried to learn to read music as an adult, it takes a long time to pick it up. So
Yeah.
Nice. There's a question here about satellite pen testing, which is way beyond the scope of my knowledge. I have no idea what kind of like communication protocols or systems or whatever I used on satellites, other than I did watch a video of how NASA writes code on YouTube once. That's about the extent of my understanding of
I watched
satellite systems.
I think maybe it's the same video, but it was like their thing where like you could only have this many branches and like what pointers you can use.
You're not allowed like nested loops and stuff.
Yeah, like it's to make the code like the least confusing and bug prone possible.
Yeah.
Okay, to answer this question, so I don't know a lot about satellite pen testing either, but assembly can be very useful when you are reverse engineering firmware, because like the disassemblers and the like Ghidra or IDA or whatever is not always perfect what it puts back into the C, and sometimes it can be faster and a little bit better to look at the assembly itself. So when you're hunting for vulnerabilities, it helps to do the reverse engineering that way, because you know there's this joke that like everything is open source if you can read assembly, because the assembly is like actually what the program is. And then when you look at like those C representations, that's like what Ghidra thinks that assembly was wrote as, right? But if you want as close as to what's actually happening, then you should look at the assembly. And then as far as exploiting them, you need to understand, like, it's a lot easier at the assembly level to like understand the stack layout if you're trying to do like a stack overflow or some sort of buffer overflow, and what's going on there. And then also to write shellcode if you're going to use shellcode, or like if you want to get into more complicated things like ROP chaining, like return oriented programming to bypass data execution protection and things like that, you really need to know assembly at that point. Everything is happening at the low level there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I feel like this, you know, it applies to a lot of things, whether it's a satellite or some other like embedded device or something like this. It's similar, you know, similarly applicable, especially when we're looking at firmware and things like this. So
yeah, I mean, like it's pretty much any exploits development, reverse engineering, security research, like where you're looking for something novel, then assembly is going to be very helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense. Apologies if you can hear my doorbell going. I think my neighbor is popping around for something, but I'll let them deal with that. All right, so interesting question. This one's been coming up more and more, and I've given my answer to this like a bunch of different times, and it's mostly around depends on the degree, because I think like a lot of degree programs are not practical enough and they're not up to date enough, just because there aren't enough experienced people teaching it. But do you have any thoughts on cybersecurity as a degree, or versus like maybe computer science?
I personally, I mean, people should do their own research first of all, and like look at what your goal is.
Content,
look at the course content, talk to other people. But a lot of people, it's to get a job. And if you look right now, I would say you'll see computer science be on a lot more job postings, because they're just, cybersecurity degrees are still so new. It's one of those things where like, and computer science will get you into so much. Like you could get into engineering, you get into development. Like it's really, the topics in it are very relevant to cybersecurity, but it could, you know, open a lot of other doors for you as well. If you're finding it's a hard time to get that first job, or you get tired of security because you're always fixing broken stuff. I've seen people get frustrated with security because they're tired of fixing broken things and people not listening to them about it. So they're like, I'm just going to go be a developer or whatever.
Even half of exploit DB, like nothing runs. Like you run it and it's like the most basic syntax error, and it's like, how did this get like verified, because the script doesn't work?
It doesn't even compile.
Exactly. Yeah, I also think that cybersecurity degrees are more geared towards GRC in general, and that's not like every cybersecurity degree, but I think a lot of them are very much on the GRC side. So if you want to go on to the technical side of security, yeah, I still think the safer bet generally is computer science, but you got to do your homework. You got to read what's in the program, what's being covered, who's teaching it. Do they have any industry credibility and things like this? Because I think what's interesting is cybersecurity is a very industry-driven field. A lot of other fields are very, the research is driven from the academic side, and then the industry learns from that. Cybersecurity is moving way too fast for that to happen. I think tech in general. So yeah, it's a bit of an odd one. I don't want to say the degrees aren't good, but your mileage may vary, I think, is the like what it comes down to. All right, I'm scrolling down. We've still got loads of questions to get through. Oh, networking course. Don't we already have a course on networking? Like, and also, does this mean like computer networking or networking? I think how to chat to people.
No, they mean computer networking, because I recognize this person as taking the help desk course. So yeah, I can't give a time on it, but the only thing I can say is it's coming.
Okay.
It is on. It is. We have noted that it is an important course for us to put out, and it will be something that we do. We're working on it.
Nice. It's in the works. Do you think this year or maybe next year?
I would hope this year. I mean, I can't make any promises, but
you heard it here first. Networking course coming this year. Nice. All right, let me keep scrolling down. Oh, this is an interesting question. So, can TCM come up with machines like Try Hack Me, Hack the Box in the near future? So, for our courses, I think it's really important to deploy your own labs, explore them, go into them, set up infrastructure, because you learn so much from that experience. Because once you get past the basics, like you can exploit a target, blah, blah, blah. If you have a target and your exploit isn't working, how do you figure out, when you don't have access to the backend and the logs, how do you figure out what's going wrong? Well, if it's WordPress 5, you can just spin up WordPress and be like, okay, I'm going to fire my exploits at this. I know it has these plugins. I'm going to go deeper and I'm going to do the research and I'm going to figure out why my exploit's failing. So being able to deploy and manage your own labs is not just good from a learning perspective, but also good from a troubleshooting perspective. You'll learn tons of stuff. It's just really, really useful. But having said that, I also wish we did have a place where we could just spin up labs on demand for some stuff. For our live classes, they're all hosted. So if you do join our live classes, we do have this capability. So everything we do on our live classes is all you come in, you click a button, you join the VPN, and so we do have this. But if we just did, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, which we have two coming up in the near future, which one of them is the Active Directory one, attacking and defending Active Directory, which I have had the pleasure of doing that one, and it is very good. It is
it's really nice.
Of course. Blue team and red team. And then Andrew Prince has the SOC one coming up, which I think is going to be excellent. I'm hoping I can get to sit in on that one.
Yeah. I think it's like almost sold out as well.
Yeah, both of them are getting close to.
If you want to jump in on them, definitely take a look. Obviously the details are on tcmsec.com and you can check out the live training there, but they're both like the seats are going pretty fast. So definitely check them out. So yeah, if you want, like in the live training, we do have this. But also if we just put out loads of boxes and kind of like did the same as Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, we would be the same as them as well. So, we're more like trying to teach, if that makes sense. So different, different vibe.
Have you ever done that on a Hack the Box you couldn't solve? host like it yourself? I have for a couple of
Oh, I've
them.
done it
They're
for like
usually
my example. So yeah, for WordPress plugins, when I've been doing pen tests and stuff in the past, I've done that. I've spun up services and mostly ones that you can find like or easily spin up with Docker. Like it's really easy to quickly do. I don't think I've done it for a hack the box machine that I couldn't solve. Trying to think.
I've done it before for one. It was like a gym software or something like that, but it was open source. Like, because people usually pull them from like open source, so there's some banner grabbing, and then I couldn't get something working on it, so I was just like, I found the spin it up on my own, and then like it's a lot easier from the inside out.
I did it for, I think there's an old vulnerability in OS tickets. And I saw the exploit was on exploit DB, but I used it as a code review challenge. And so I downloaded I just pulled it from GitHub, the older version, and then went to find, and I had a rough idea of like what the vulnerability was. So I used that previously as a code review challenge for myself. So I think finding old CVs in software is a great way of doing code review without burning out, where you're like, I've been doing this for 2 days and I've found nothing. So at least there's something critical to find.
Look at the commits. We'll see the
yeah. Look at the diffs. No, but I was doing it like I was deploying it and then like doing it from almost blind. Like, but I knew there was an RC in there somewhere, so I was like, hunting for that. So yeah, I think it's important for sure. And building labs is even building your own labs, like building your own CTFs, I think like teaches you so much, takes you from like beginner and being able to fuzz and pull off exploits to like the next level. I think for sure. Anything for cloud security side? I think we do want to do cloud stuff. Me personally, I'm not a cloud expert, so I'm not in a position where I can put out a cloud course. So I think that's the current state, is that we don't have anybody like who's really, really like a cloud expert who's working on it at the moment. But it's definitely on the radar for sure. As soon as we get our ducks in a row, this is something we'll be working on, I think.
Yeah.
All right, back to on topic. Is IoT hacking a branch of the industry? Are there many jobs for it? Or is it more of a fun to-do side project stuff? So like, I think you're the best person to answer this. Like,
yes, it is a branch of the industry. Like there's, I don't want to say a lot of, but there are a decent amount of companies now that either do that only, or it is like a branch, or they have a division that does that. There is going to be, in my opinion, a lot more business for IoT testing, even in the 2025. Like I was kind of thinking to myself the other day, I think 2025 is going to be the year where people start taking IoT security a lot more serious, because in the past it hasn't been, and like it's almost a running joke in
it's like
security.
Technical debt, right?
Yeah,
it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah, and it is now though, because you've seen, for example, we have the Cyber Resiliency Act in the EU, which is going to make it so like you can't sell your stuff if you aren't opening it up to research and having like either a bug bounty program or whatnot. And that's going to impact IoT devices a lot, because in the past they just haven't cared. And then even in the US recently, we've seen like TP-Link may be banned because they're so insecure. And that's like routers, smart cameras, all of that jazz. So all of these devices are going to need to now like be rushing to try and get themselves secured, pen tested, whatever. And I think there's going to be an even more influx. So there are jobs. A lot of the people that I know that work in that industry, they also do something else, like web and IoT are like a pretty strong crossover, but it makes you a really strong selling point when you're interviewing to places to be like, I also bring this topic that can get us clients.
Yeah, Yeah, that makes sense. And I think also recently, I can't remember who it was, but I was watching the Critical Thinking Bug Bounty podcast, which is a great podcast. I think even if you're not into bug bounty, you should listen to it generally
Yes.
because there are so many great insights. But somebody on there was saying that IoT was also like a really up and coming bug bounty area that not many people are in at the moment. So there's a skills shortage.
Yeah,
So.
that might have been actually Matt Brown, friend of
Probably
the channel, and one of my favorite resources for IoT hacking, all things low-level hardware hacking. He is a pretty prominent bug bounty hunter as well, and I know he focuses mostly on IoT stuff. And in some ways, it can be a little bit less intimidating because it's just like a smaller pool, right? Like if you go for a popular web thing, I think you've talked about this before, you're up against like maybe tens of thousands of people, right? But not as many people are doing IoT stuff. So you have less competition.
Yeah. And if you, Matt Brown's YouTube channel is just like Matt Brown, right? So go and check it out. There's cool
super
stuff
cool.
on there.
He was in a Wired article yesterday, which I was like, wow, that's so cool. He found this super scary flaw. He bought, those license plate readers, ALPR.
Yeah.
Bought one of those off of eBay somehow. I don't know how this stuff ends up on eBay because like are the police just selling them on eBay or what? Anyway, through like looking through the firmware and stuff, he was able to find unauthenticated live ones out in the wild that you could just view the like license plate data and stuff, which is crazy to me. But yeah, anyway, his channel's awesome. I like he goes through like all the technical details, like no, like here's the thing, we're gonna rip it over, we're gonna do all this start to finish. It's great channel.
Yeah, very cool. And that also I think highlights like as regulations come in, government and things like that are going to be the first to have to align to regulations. So like devices like that and jobs like that are gonna come up. So like 100%. License plate readers, I assume, are owned by whatever traffic authority.
They're a Motorola. This was a Motorola device, but and drones are going to be huge. I think like there is drone pen testers and drone pen testing going on, but there is a huge demand for that, and it's just going to be crazy in the next few years because like specifically in like the military field of being able to secure and also take down drones, defend against it, all of that. And that's going to end up being a lot of like probably reverse engineering of hardware and firmware. And
if you follow the news, you'll know that drones are a huge part of modern warfare. So it's definitely like of course. So I have a question before. There's a few other queued up, but we might run out of time. And I'm being selfish. I want to get some questions into. What's your favorite part of the course for the Assembly 101?
Yeah, my favorite part is there's two parts, but my top one, the first one, is the last section, going through memory safety, learning about the stack. We go all the way from I've written a vulnerable program that we look at, take it apart, see why it's vulnerable at a low level, all the way to writing an exploit to first just jump to some dead code that you shouldn't be able to get to. And then we actually write our own shell code, exploit it, use the shell code. And then we remediate it. So we look at low level, like how stack canaries work and how to like implement it ourselves. So for me, that was the most interesting and entertaining part to make. I also did, if you've ever taken any of Heath's programming courses, like this was in the PEH too, he does this one challenge where he asks you, it's like do you have enough money and are you old enough scenario, like age verification and amount of money verification. So it gets you into like multiple branches of that's like kind of the thinking of it. And in Python, it's not that difficult, but it's good to learn about branching. But then I did that in assembly, and it's just like very interesting to be like, well, this is not that hard in Python, but this, there's because there's a lot of scenarios. Like I did a carnival ride, so you have to put, it's like the interface for a carnival ride. You have to put in your height and how many tickets you have, and then you have to check, and you have to let them know like all the scenarios. So like, yes, you can ride, or no, you can't because you don't have enough tickets and you're not tall enough. No, you can't because you don't have enough tickets, but you are tall enough, or the opposite of that. So there's all those branches to go into. And yeah, seeing how that's done in assembly with the jumps and everything, I think it was cool.
And then there's lazy programmers that, like me, who just put separate if statements, and if you pass all of the checks individually, and I track the checks.
Yeah.
No, I don't always do that, but actually, I do remember writing some terrible code like that when I was a teenager, and just being like, I used to build random PHP web apps when I was younger. And I do remember writing like lots of if statements, be like, okay, error equals 0, error equals 0. Like if you passed all the checks, and then based on the number, you'd get a different response at the end. So my branching was not very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, very cool. Awesome. So Tony B, what of the programming courses are we planning on doing? Any Bash classes or more Python courses? So I'm not sure off the top of my head what we've got in the pipeline in terms of programming courses.
Yeah.
It's something we like to do because it's like general good stuff to learn. But what do you think?
No, there's nothing specifically in the pipeline. At some point, I'm sure I will do a Golang course because that is like my main programming language that, you know, I'm most familiar with. And like I was at one point working as a developer writing that. So I would like to do that. No timelines. I've always thought a Bash course would be fun too. Like we've done Linux. Yeah. So if you want to learn Bash stuff, like free tier, the help desk course has Bash in it. Yeah. The Linux one has a bit as well, the free Linux one, and then the Linux 101 course as well. So like there is a decent amount.
Has some basic stuff like how to do like a port scan in Bash and stuff like that. But it's more like Bash as a scripting. Rather than
but like nowadays, like I think that's
its primary use.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I feel like it's tricky to get a balance between, because obviously we all specialize in cybersecurity, but also having like programming languages is it's just such a useful skill to have. And so balancing security courses and like programming and fundamentals courses that are going to help you build your skills is a tricky one, for sure. But we do the best with the time that we have. All right, let me keep going down. We've got a few more. I think we've got time for a few more questions. I'm not 100% sure what this is referring to. So, which issues may I face when I'm not able to read my own memory dump file? Try different software to create one of my own memory dump, but they still crash. Used PC stuff needs to be investigated. So I'm not sure if there's a question in there somewhere.
If you take the errors that you're getting, whatever errors, and either plug them into Google or ChatGPT, sometimes that can be helpful. I'm assuming, so you're having like a segmentation fault core dumped, and then you want to analyze the core. So like different debugging tools can do that. So I'm not sure like what you're saying to different software to create one of my own memory, but yeah,
that makes sense. If you have a specific question, let us know. But it seems to be what you're leaning towards.
Usually I take the error thing first. I read it because
so many people don't read error.
And it's like it says exactly in the thing. I've had that so many times. Not saying this person did, but just in general. And then I Google it.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So, do you do any bug bounty hunting? And
no, I don't, because like right now I am just so busy. I'm a dad, I have a very busy son. Like I don't have a lot of spare time outside of like work and family life. So I have zero time for it. I
Yeah,
even was playing in a band. You can see like that's one of my guitars, and these are actually some of my albums that my
yeah,
band has released.
nice.
But we recently even wrapped up the band just because I didn't have I didn't have enough time to do that. So
Yeah,
bug bounting, yeah, because it's like if I was doing it, it would just be for fun. But there's
yeah,
other security things that I prefer to do for fun, like hardware hacking and stuff. And even then,
yeah.
yeah, I don't want to bother with the bug bounty stuff because I don't do it enough that I would make any money. I'd rather just pick whatever device I want, work on it.
That makes sense. So, and for me, I'm kind of like a dabbler. And again, I don't have all the time in the world. I definitely would do it more if I had more free time. It's just a matter of priorities. So I'm probably like a few hours a week I spend doing bug bounty. Just because I do enjoy doing it. It is fun. It's a nice challenge for me. And you do see some cool, like I get to interact with like quite a few different tech stacks that I wouldn't normally touch because I'm pretty much like I have the tech stack I like, and I try to touch as little else as possible just because I'm more productive that way. But I think generally bug bounty can be fun. I think at the start it's rough. It
Yeah.
takes a long time to get to a point where you're kind of like clean sailing, and even then you have good days and bad days. But yeah, if you try it, if you enjoy it, because like it's a zero investment
Yeah, just do
thing,
it. Yeah.
do it. And if you enjoy doing it, keep doing it. Yeah, and for me, I try and treat it a bit like a game. Like,
Yeah.
I'll look at a target, I'll just try and do some discovery, try and find some subdomains, look at some interesting stuff. And for me, that's like I've achieved something just by finding it and looking at it and analyzing it. I don't chase like, oh, I really need to like find this bug, or I really need to find something. Like, I don't know. I was a pen tester before, so it's like I've done that. It's fine. It's all good. Cool. All right, let's take two more questions. Oh, okay. So this is a good one. What's up? I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Afiwe? Afiwe? Sorry if I didn't say your name correctly. Interest in cybersecurity. Not sure which course to take or which certification. Depends on the branch of security you want to get into, but generally speaking, I think take the PEH is probably like a good place to start, or take one of like, if you don't have any technical background, take one of the 100 or the 101 courses. If you like hardware hacking, take Andrew's IoT course.
Yeah.
For sure. And if you like web stuff, take the web course.
Yeah.
The beginner one is like practical bug bounty, and then we have other courses as well. So
Yeah, the SOC course could be a very good foundational one too. And if you're
yeah.
Like I love red team stuff and hacking, but like if you are motivated or like one of your goals is that I want to find a job, then sometimes blue team can be like, we say this is probably like 90% of the jobs are blue team.
Yeah.
And like the SOC course would help you in like any avenue of cybersecurity later, like knowing what's going on the blue team side is so important regardless of what you're doing. So that would be another excellent one.
It's like the PH, but from a different lens, like the other side. So and they both cover so many different useful skills. So yeah, definitely worthwhile. All right, let's take last question from Zach. What's up, Zach? Is help desk a great way to start out before getting your first cyber job? Interesting question. That's what I'm leaning towards. So I don't have any IT job experience yet. What was your journey in, Andrew? Because I was like, I was a dev, and then I switched to like security, and then kind of like decided I liked AppSec most, and just continued with that.
Yeah. So my journey. So I went to school for electrical engineering. So I had a little bit of a non-standard journey, kind of like into tech and getting more to the software side and then cybersecurity. But my very first job, like out of, university, I was working as an electrical engineer, but my job was like, project and support coordinator. I don't know if they gave me that title, but like about 50% of my time was like a somewhat more advanced help desk position, but I was literally like fielding tickets, calls, emails about, I mean, it's a little bit more of a complex system because, you know, there was like PLCs but it still involved networking. It still ran on Windows. It ran on an SQL database, had to integrate with like the IT, all that stuff. And I learned so much doing that job. I did it for 4 years because I touched like everything. Active Directory, we set up, you know, networking problems. We literally built the computers for our stuff as well as turnkey. So we would actually build the computers because it was cheaper. That way you could get OEM licenses for SQL. Anyway, so I built computers, fix them. I traveled to people's sites. I learned how to deal with customers that were like, oh my God, we can't run the plant because X is not working. Like, and yeah, I probably wouldn't be where I was without covering all of that and having all of those basics. So yeah, and then eventually from there, I kind of like, I got into training, and through that I've got, but it really introduced me to the whole tech side. So I like to say like, you definitely don't have to, because people don't want to, but I mean, there's a reason it is the default route to get into other tech roles. Yeah, and it will go so far. And you know, you get paid to learn. I know that was Heath's, you know, way to get in. There's quite a few people on our pen testing team that had the same pattern.
Yeah, and even like help desk people at TCM then go on to be pen testers as well. It sounds like you did help desk but cranked up to 11, like on hard mode. But yeah, I think, and for me the main thing is find a role that that just exposes you to different things, that helps you build different skills, because there's no like, oh, you have to complete all of these things and have all of these skills and then you're ready. It's like you need to build skills generally, and be good at problem solving, and you know, hopefully good with people, and then you'll find something. It's not like a, you know, when you see the pathway videos and it's like do XYZ, it's not like that in real life. It's more like just continuously work towards the goal, and there'll be a day where you get a job and you're like, awesome, I've done it. So
yeah, and a lot of times you can get companies to pay for your certs and stuff. So like, it's just it's a good foot in the door to move on from.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have time for. So yeah, thanks for coming on stream, Andrew. Lots of great questions. If we didn't get around to your question, there is a channel on the Discord. I think it's called Wednesday Live Vibes. So drop them in there and we'll try and answer them. And of course, Andrew's on Discord as well. You can check him out, DigitalAndrew. You've got like websites. You follow him on LinkedIn. Do his courses. Yeah, all good. So yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody for joining, and thanks Andrew for your time.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Bye for now.